before our guest comes up, he doesn't know I'm going to do this. So if he gets mad, he might leave. But I curated this video from perusing his Facebook, and I found a cool video because Tyler plays some mean guitar. So I found this video. No, you should see it. He's covering his head. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear you whisper you have nothing left. I will send an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. I will never stop marching to reach you in the middle of the hardest fight. It's true, I will rescue you. All right, I found that video and I thought I'd play that to introduce Tyler today. So without any further delays, guys, what is up, Tyler? Tell us what's up today, man. Good to see you this morning.
Good to see you too. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm so happy to see so many people joining in. I'm glad you played that song. We're going to talk about that song a little bit today, if that's okay.
Yes, that is perfectly fine. I'll save that for later on. What that was and why you were singing, not singing, but playing. And I know I asked you, I was like, Tyler, do you sing? You're like, I do not sing.
Nope, I do not.
There is always hope that can a chameleon change his spots or whatever it's called, or leopard change his spots. So.
I mean, you know, I sing to myself, but not.
Yeah,
I don't sing into a mic or anything like that.
In the shower and the water just stops. So
yeah.
It either stops because it's painful or stops like, wow. So I don't know. So I know some people use the term cancer survivor. Now, do you like that term or what?
You know, I haven't really thought about it. Honestly, I hadn't put any thought into it until you had suggested the alternative, right? And I think, yeah, survivor is a good term, but for me, I always, I know people that have had cancer that had very difficult prognoses who, maybe the doctor said, you don't have a great chance of getting through this, and they did. And so to me, when I think of a cancer survivor, I think of somebody who, made it to the other side when maybe the statistics weren't in their favor. In my case, the prognosis was pretty good. They knew that they had a good chance of treating it. So I don't, survivor is kind of, I experienced it. I've been on that journey. Your other idea about what they should call us is a good one, I think, which is thrive. I can't remember.
Yeah, thriving after cancer, because I know survivor. I know that's a great imagery of a warrior, slaying Goliath, and that's great. It gives you, it empowers you.
Yeah.
I think we don't just stop after that victory. You have thrived after your cancer. It's not like you said, okay, I beat Goliath, it's over with. Now I can just rest until I go to heaven. But how has that motivated you to thrive? How have you thrived since then?
Well, I think anybody that's been through that journey, or any other really hard season, you get to the other side of it, and hopefully, you see life a little differently on the other side. You prioritize things a little differently. I think that's what everybody says that, and then when you experience it, you kind of go, "Oh, people really do see things differently on the other side," and so it's enjoying the little things more, or appreciating them more, but then at the same time also wanting to kind of grab life with both hands and live the life that God has for you, right? And so I think you become less complacent, and there's thriving in that, right? It's
absolutely
having your eyes opened a little bit more to maybe what God wants for you and for the people around you, and living into that with a new sort of, passion. So that's kind of my experience, I think.
Epic. Well, I know you don't like to talk much about yourself, but some people don't know who you are. So tell us about yourself, your wife, your work, what do you do, your music, and all
yeah,
that.
I'm a Texan through and through. I grew up in Dallas. I'm an architect. I've been practicing architecture for 21 years now. And I've been a musician most of my life. I picked up the guitar when I was, I think, 12 years old. And in high school, started playing in church, and have, done a ton of, playing in bands and playing around, traveled a little bit doing that. Nothing major. And then, but I've always kind of found a home playing worship music on Sundays. And so I started playing at Irving Bible Church 21 years ago, and have been doing that ever since. And I kind of stopped playing out at, and public venues and things probably about 10 years ago now. And so really the main thing that I've been doing is the worship thing. I would love to do more, but life happens and it's hard.
Yeah, you're a busy man.
Yeah, well, and met the woman of my dreams probably 6 years ago now, and
Wow.
we got married 4 years ago, and then we've been through a lot of life in the last 4 years, but
Probably more than you guys thought you were gonna get into when you got married.
For sure, but that happens.
Yeah, you stand up with the preacher, everybody's excited, and they say in sickness and health, you're like, okay, I got this.
Right.
And little did you know that you're gonna have to really live through that vow, and probably more on Rebecca's side than you. She's probably been easy to live with. I don't know. Us men, nothing against you, man, but us men, we can be rough to live with, man.
She's a saint for sure.
That is great. I was reading through y'all's Care Bridge thing from the past, and some of the things she wrote in there is just beautiful. I'm like, how come Tyler's not this spiritual? What's up with this? That's good, man. So speaking of spiritual life, tell us a little bit about your journey of faith and how you came to know Christ, and what was that experience?
Oh man, how much time we got now?
Give us the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, the short version. So I sort of discovered Christ and faith and all that when I was in high school through Young Life.
Oh, cool.
Pretty common story, I think. And there was just something there with the people there. There was something in what they were talking about that was different than my experience, particularly in school. And so I sort of latched onto that. So yeah, that happened, I think, when I was maybe 14 or 15, 14, I think. And I had a pretty typical kind of faith existence in church through that, but I kind of always struggled a little bit that my faith was sort of in my head. Like I never, I always had a little bit of stress or tension, I guess, over the fact that I wasn't sort of experiencing my faith the way people were talking about it, or at least pastors were talking about it. And I had some good mentors along the way that sort of helped me understand that, that was okay. We're all wired differently, and all of our faith they're different, right? We're different people.
Really?
But then about, I guess 8 years ago, something clicked. I was going through some interesting kind of up and down roller coaster seasons with some other things in my life. And something clicked one day. And it just, a lot of barriers that I had up that I kind of knew that I had up, but I couldn't get them to go away.
Right.
They fell down. And from that point on, there's just been this real, passion and kind of a real understanding, for me at least, of a more well-rounded faith, of a faith that isn't just an intellect, of a faith that is really rooted in hope, and a peace that surpasses understanding, right? And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's interesting to me because that didn't happen right out of the gate. That didn't happen for 20 years almost.
Right.
When it happened, it was a profound shift in my own faith. So yeah, that's the short version.
Yeah, and I think we all, I call it a journey because it is a journey. Even once you make the decision to follow Christ, there's roller coasters through that and things that we learn and we grow and experience. So I know cancer probably brought a whole level of experience to you.
Yeah.
So what exactly was the diagnosis, and what was the prognosis that they gave you?
So I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. By the time they found it, it was stage 3, stage 4. But Hodgkin's, the staging is a little different. It's not like if you have a tumorous cancer, a stage 4 is pretty bad. Hodgkin's stage 4 just means that it's kind of spread through your blood, through your lymphatic system.
Right.
So it took a while to kind of figure out what was going on. I didn't feel that bad. And was kind of checking out some other things and had a CT of my lungs for something that was completely innocuous. And they found my right lung was kind of infiltrated with a lot of growth and scar tissue or what looked like scar tissue. And my lymph nodes were swollen quite a bit. And so that was the first, that was in January of 2018. And so it was very, there was a week or so of kind of knowing that something was very wrong, but not knowing what it was. When they did biopsies on my lymph nodes, which I don't know if any of y'all are thinking about getting that done for fun, but don't.
Oh, okay. I'll take it off my bucket list. Sorry.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Okay, I won't do that.
But and then we had to wait for that to come back. It came back and they said it's Hodgkin's, which I have, my wife is a doctor, her dad is a doctor. We have doctors in the family and friends, and everybody said, that's good news. And I thought, that's good news. What do you mean?
What?
And and they said, for all of the things that this could have been, that's probably the most positive. That's the best outlook or the best, prognosis, because
you ever think, guys, you won't trade places then?
Yeah. But I mean, in all seriousness, it was I had a lot of people around me who knew what they were talking about, and they were
good.
They were visibly relieved when that prognosis came in. Cause I mean, we thought, do I have lung cancer and, advanced lung cancer? Which my dad died of lung cancer when I was 21. So that was the first thing I thought.
Yeah. Wow.
So but anyway, the point is the prognosis was good. Hodgkin's is a very treatable cancer. And so, and it's funny. My oncologist said it's well behaved. And I was like, I don't know what that means. And it basically just means that it doesn't spread really fast.
Right.
And so I had honestly probably had it for quite a while, like a year or two, or, we don't know. Wow. But the prognosis was pretty good. They said, we'll do this with the chemotherapy, probably 6 months of chemotherapy, maybe radiation on the end. And there's probably an 80% chance that will treat it.
Right.
And if that doesn't work, then there's other things they can do. Ultimately, it was 90% treatable, which is great, right? At the time, I'm sitting here thinking it's not 100, right? I mean, somebody has to be the 10%.
Yeah, ouch. Yeah, I can imagine that war that was going on in your mind.
Right.
So tell us about, what was your initial reaction? Were you afraid? Were you? And they talk about the stages of grief. Did you go through those?
That's I've thought about that. That's a tough question. I don't know that I went through all the stages of grief. I think, like I said, we found out that something was wrong, and it on the scans, on the imaging, it looked very wrong. We knew something was bad, and there was a period there where we didn't know what it was because we were waiting for test results to come back, and that was a hard week. I think it was about a week and a half, and that was when you don't know what you're facing. Certainly there was sadness, fear, but I also think that was a real time of sort of having my eyes opened, to my own faith in a way. I realized, I was sad about the possibility of having something terminal.
Right. Oh, that's
But
not.
it's not, you don't want that, obviously.
No.
And
Yeah.
I certainly didn't want that from my friends and my family and my wife of 2 years. But I also at the same time realized that I wasn't afraid of it. I wasn't afraid of the mortality. And I realized that, and so for me, there was kind of in a sense, the rubber meets the road, right? I mean, it's easy to talk about faith, but when you actually have to step out on that bridge, what does it really look like? That's the metaphor everybody uses. It's easy to say you believe that bridge will hold you up, but then when you have to work on it. And that was that moment of saying, I've said that I believe this thing for a long time. And now I can say from experience that God met me in that moment, one of many countless times that he did. And I realized that, yeah, I have a hope. I have a hope in a resurrected life, and I'm not afraid of mortality because of that. And so there was this just peace in that I was surprised by. And so, stages of grief, I don't really know that I went through all of that in the kind of traditional sense. At least not at the front. Maybe later. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not like you have a checklist. Okay, denial, anger. Yeah, it's okay. I'll check.
Right, but I mean, in hindsight,
accept it. Yeah.
I don't know. There wasn't denial. Anger was probably not real high on the list.
Yeah, you don't strike me as an angry kind of person. I know we all have our moments, but you strike me as more logical and more chill. With
Chill. I take that. That'll work.
We'll ask Rebecca later on. So
yeah, ask her, see what she thinks.
Yeah. We'll let her do a post autopsy on this interview, and yeah, because she's the spiritual one in the family. So yeah. I'm just kidding with you, really kidding. Speaking of marriage, you guys were married for 2 years when you found out. So, how did it affect your marriage? Negatively, positively? You can be as transparent as you want to be.
Yeah, well, you said it. It was like you stand at the altar and you say, in sickness and in health, and it's so common. Do we really think about what that means? And so we were definitely, we looked at each other and just kind of said, well, this is, we're going to do this. That's what this is the place that God has put us now. And so it very quickly, my wife she's a doctor. And so she has the ability to kind of turn off the emotion for certain things, medical related, because that's what she kind of has to do for work anyway. So it took a little bit to get to where, that automatic response in her was sort of less in the forefront, and we were really kind of facing it together and as a married couple. But I think, we both very quickly said, okay, this is what God has for us in this season. How do we glorify him through this? How do we make sure that we're sensitive to how he wants to use it for his purposes, for his kingdom?
Right.
We didn't know what it was. We don't know what the answer to that is. And we said, we're going to post on Caring Bridge because people want to know how things are going, but that's a great place to just process through things with other people and say, I think for us, part of it was just being transparent, being really honest with each other and really honest with other people. It was certainly hard. There were definitely, stretches where we were both tired. She was a rock. She never, unless she just did a really good job of hiding it, she never, hit a rough patch. It didn't seem. Maybe I wasn't aware because I was so kind of out of it with chemo and things anyway. That's probably true. And we were careful to make sure that she was still spending time with her friends and not being completely consumed with making sure I was okay. So that was important. That was something we were concerned with. But I think that just really the focus of saying, praying that, obviously for God to meet us in our times of need, for sure, but also just trying to be aware of, what is the bigger purpose in it. And I think when you start to really embrace the idea and the experience, and this has happened, in my life multiple times, where when you're in a desert and the reaction is to be frustrated by it or kind of angry by it.
Absolutely.
But the desert is where God meets you. And there's so much peace in knowing that the desert is where God comes. And one of my favorite verses is Old Testament, and it's in Hosea. And of course, I can't remember the exact reference, but there's a couple of chapters of just this lament about how bad Israel has been. And then the tone shifts very quickly, and he says that I will lead her into the desert, speaking about Israel. I will lead Israel into the desert, and there I will speak to her gently. And in that context, it was kind of I'm going to pull Israel into a season where, I'm going to discipline them in a sense.
Right.
But at the same time, I think that, those seasons where we feel like we're in a desert, that's where we're most able to hear God's voice, God speaking and working and doing those things. And so, not being afraid of the desert, I think is a really, it's a good place to be. Doesn't mean it's fun. It doesn't mean I want more desert, right? But when you face something that is a desert, there's so much peace in knowing that, that's where God meets you. And that's where he's met me time and time again, to the point where I can't believe I'm going to admit this, but to the point where, I feel like I'm coming to the end of a desert and I'm not sure I want to leave the desert, because that season is where I am most connected to God.
Yeah, most people, when they come to faith in Christ, they think that life's going to be all peaches and cream now. And when they find out it's not, they get discouraged. But what you said is completely opposite. You're saying that when we come to Christ, we should expect those deserts. And you're saying that through those deserts we can grow. That is powerful. I mean, that is just really powerful. And that's really shifted my thinking even just now. So that's powerful. Thank you for sharing.
Oh man,
just some of the things that you say. I know it's not you. I know the Lord's speaking through you. And I'm not no insult to you, but I know the Lord's it's great wisdom.
Not me.
And I hope that you know that and you sense that, and that's a gift that God's given you. So, what advice would you give marriage couples that go through this?
I think you got to be open with your emotions with each other. I don't think it's not healthy to worry that the other person is burdened too much already, and that they can't also carry some of what you're carrying, because chances are you're not struggling in exactly the same way. And so I think it's important to just lean on each other, right? It's the mutual submission and uplifting that happens through saying, look, right now I'm struggling with this and I need your help with it. Or I'm weak right now in this moment, or I'm over it. I need some encouragement, and being honest with that. And then then the other person being open to receiving that and sort of saying, how can I uplift my partner? How can we serve each other best through it? I think it's very easy to assume that the other person already has too much on their plate. But I think the reality is that God puts us together specifically for that, specifically to empower, the other person through his giftings of each of us individually. Right. And so, we have to share our weaknesses in order for other people to meet us in that moment and help us through it. And that was huge for us. There was a moment early on where I'm going to share one of Becca's experiences where we were in the car driving to church one morning, And it was very early in the process, and I'm not sure if we knew what was going on yet or not, as far as the specific diagnosis. I can't remember. We may not have. And we were driving to church on Sunday morning, and she was kind of praying to herself about, I think she was just doing the processing, the why me, why now, why this.
Right.
Not in an angry way, but just in I don't know what to do with this, God. I don't know where to. Yeah. And she said there was a moment where very clearly she felt this sense of God saying, I chose you for this.
Wow.
And and at that moment there was kind of okay, God chose me for this moment to be here in this season for him, and vice versa. And so, I think that we have to, we got to live into that idea that, our partners, our spouses are, we submit to each other in
Right.
Christ,
Absolutely.
and we uplift each other in that process, that we serve each other sacrificially. So, it's not an easy journey, and there are days where you get frustrated just at life, and it comes out at your partner because that's the person that's there.
With you,
so you got to have a lot of grace for each other, both sides, but anyway, that's kind of, I guess, what I would say.
That's great advice. And being someone with illness, I know that my wife goes through some things that what you said might be encouraging to her. So, and there are other wives out there whose husbands, are going through other things, whether it's emotional or things that aren't as serious as cancer, but are still legitimate. Things that.
Yeah, I think that cancer or not, that I feel like that's the way we should be, striving to live for each other, right?
Yeah, because I realize, and my wife would be the first one that sometimes we do get at each other's throat. It's like you said, it's because we are in this foxhole together. We got bombs being hurled at us and rockets coming everywhere, and we're just the person next to us is the one that gets the oh no. So we're working on that too. We've been married a little bit longer. I won't say how long, but a little bit longer than you guys. But you guys have learned some lessons that maybe we haven't learned yet, and that's just so powerful. That in the desert, God taught you these things. So it's well, something I'm getting out of this right now. It's don't fear the desert. Don't fear the desert.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, don't seek it out, but
yeah. And I think the other thing is that sometimes the desert it just is what it is, right? It just happens. Cancer is what it is. I didn't do anything. I didn't make a bad decision to get lymphoma, right? And sometimes the desert is, God allowing the consequences of our decisions to kind of play out, right? He doesn't rescue us from the consequences all the time, but he is there with us. He does meet us there. And so sometimes the desert is specifically, related to certain, things, and sometimes it's not. And I think that, regardless, it's important to just kind of say, I'm here now, and what is the purpose of it? There's a number of worship songs out recently that I've been listening to, that talk about this idea that, God is in the battle, and that he doesn't, what was the phrase in one of the ones that I've listened to just last night? He doesn't waste a battle. Like, I'm going to paraphrase what somebody else said, but that thing that was designed to keep you out is the thing that God is going to use to bring you in.
Wow.
And I heard that and I was like, oh my gosh, that blew my mind, right? It's so powerful. I mean, that's so beautiful, right? Anyway.
So you're great, man. Being a musician, I believe that music is a healing tool.
Oh, yes.
So when you said something that just blew my mind. some people, when they're going through illness or they're going through cancer, they take a break from things. But you said that you requested to play more. Tell us about that, and why did you do that?
Well, so yeah, my regular schedule at Irving Bible Church, there's two guitar players pretty much that rotate back, but we alternate back and forth. So generally, I would be up every other week playing electric guitar. And then we have a fair, decent, we have a number of other guys that'll come in and play acoustic guitar.
Right.
And I had just said, even before, any of the diagnosis or any of that kind of stuff, there was so much joy and life in worship for me. And sometimes it was, worship on my own, but a lot of it was just worshiping in that community. It was being with my people, right? And doing that together was so life-giving for me. It was so important. And so I kind of said, hey, on days I want to keep playing as long as I can. I want to keep playing. And on days when I'm not scheduled to play electric guitar, if there's not another acoustic guitar up, go ahead and book me for an acoustic too. Like, let me play every weekend if there's room. And everybody was very, like, hey, we'll book you, and you just tell us. There was one or two instances where, we were in rehearsal on a Sunday, and I would have something. I remember one, early on one Sunday, I wasn't feeling good, and my wife was like, okay, we need to take you into the hospital because this isn't a good sign. And so my community was very, very, like, you do what you need to do. If you want to be here, great. If we book you and then you can't do it, no big deal.
That is so great.
So I had an incredible community. I mean, more than just that, but just in general. But I, there was a life in that worship for me that I experienced that was unique through that season. I could go all week and I would be, exhausted and just tired from the chemo and just not feeling great. And on a Sunday morning, I would show up, and for that 20 minutes or so that we were playing, 3 or 4 songs, worshiping with a room, with 800 or 1,000 people and the band, and there was life there that, I felt everything else went away, I think is what it was,
Absolutely.
And then when we would finish and I would walk off stage, I'd be exhausted again.
Yeah.
But in that, in that actual worship time, it was so important for me to keep doing that and stay connected. And for me, it was, staying connected to the truth of who God is and the work that he does and the hope that we have. I mean, the resurrection and the promise of resurrection for us, the promise of restoring his creation to his kingdom. And there's just so much hope in the songs that we sing and exalting him and glorifying him through that. I had to grab that with everything that I was.
So much better than at home, binge watching Netflix or something,
Yeah, I watched a lot of cooking shows, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that moment on Sunday, it just all went away for you for 20 minutes. That's just
so
refreshing. Now, were there times where you were ever, overwhelmed by emotion as you were playing, or were you just
all the time? Yeah, all the time. I mean, part of why, I joke that they don't give me a microphone because I don't deserve it.
Oh, no.
But also I'm glad, because there are times, I mean, I sing when we're playing.
Right.
And I like that I don't have a microphone, because I don't want to have to worry about being on a microphone.
Be the focus of anything, yeah.
Right. And there are times where I'm singing a line and I can't get the rest of it out because I'm overcome.
Yeah,
and so that happened all the time, and it still does. I mean, there's still songs that we sing. There's still moments where, I have to put everything, every ounce of who I am and into what that song is saying at the time. And so it's just part of who I am. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the way God created you. And I put on the screen, if you have any questions, guys, in the text, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook Live, go ahead and put them in there, and Tyler might not answer your question, but I think he might answer it. So
somebody, you just have to point them out to me, because I'm not really watching the comments.
I'll put it on the screen. So you got a comment, guys. Maybe you want to say something positive to him. We'll put it on the screen. You want to say something negative? I'll kick you out of here. But if you have a question, ask him. Okay, here we go. We got a question. It says, who is your favorite worship leader? But be careful here. You might offend somebody. No, I'm just kidding.
Joel Houston. I dodged that bullet, didn't I?
Uh-oh.
Just kidding.
Now, if I say who is that, are you going to slap me?
No, he's one of the original guys from Hillsong United.
Okay, got you.
Which I just named him because he was somebody whose name I could remember. I don't know that I really have.
Man, you cannot go wrong with Hillsong of Bethel. You're good to go.
Yeah. Crystal's joking because she is our associate worship pastor.
I'm going to hide that. Yeah.
No, she is. So no, for real though, I should say this. Like,
is she the one singing in the video?
Yes, she's the one singing in the video.
Cool.
Her husband is also he's the worship pastor at IBC, and I've been very close to them for 14 years, 15 years, and man, they're just the best people you could ever hope to know. And
that's great.
And they were huge. They were. Yeah, I can't say enough. Like, I'm gonna get choked up if I keep trying.
Yes, okay, that's okay. Man, I'm gonna have to get in connection with Crystal and then get them to come on the program one of these days.
Oh, there you go. That's a good idea.
IDC, y'all got something going on over there that I need to tap into that. So this is good stuff. Good question there, Crystal. Any other questions? Brian says that he loves watching you sing while you're playing.
I love that. So yeah, and it's great. I like the fact that when I'm, on the platform that I actually can see the room. Like we don't make the room so dark that it's not like it's not like kind of, light show, crazy rock show kind of thing.
Right.
And which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I particularly like the fact, and I think a lot of us do, that like when we're up there, I want to be able to see and connect with the congregation. And so being able to see other people singing is a really critical part of, being connected to what we're doing. So Brian likes watching me singing, but I like watching him singing too.
There's something about the whole, I know there was a great song, The Audience of One, that is such a true statement that, we are gathered in this room and yeah, we're on a stage, if you're a musician or the pastor, you're on the stage, but we're all together in one room lifting our voices to Jesus, not to the band or the seats. We're not, that's not how it works. And so if I can make eye contact with you while you're playing your heart out to Jesus and you can see me, there's kind of that validation of one another in our faith that,
that we're doing this together, right? Yeah, exactly.
My wife says that she loves the Corona song that you and your wife did. I loved it. That was so cool. That was cool.
I'll tell her thanks. She wrote that. We were going to do more about that.
So I don't know how we could share that with everybody. Maybe next week I'll try to pull that video. Can I use it? Do you mind?
Yeah. I mean, or just go to my Facebook. They should be up on my
Facebook page, and it's on public, right?
Yes, public.
And go listen to his wife sing "My Corona." That is just so.
So I should say about that one, she wrote that before it was kind of as serious as it is. So it feels a little irreverent now.
Yes.
So at the beginning, it was kind of like, it was distant enough that it was still kind of okay to be funny about it.
Right.
It doesn't feel that way now. So just keep that in mind if you're watching.
Everybody should know that. If you don't know that, there's not much help that I have for you. Because me and my wife did one with Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville.
Oh, yeah?
Wasting a Day and COVID deal. And it's not that we don't care about those that have died. That is, we do care. And as Christians, we really
absolutely
sorrow over that because some did not know Christ. And that is so sad. But for our sanity as we're going through this, sometimes we need to find some levity and some.
For sure. Yeah. I absolutely. I mean, we did another one too. And it was, it was more about just like kind of being stuck at home together, right? Yeah. So anyway.
It was fun. And if you go to YouTube, there's a lot of parody, all kinds of popular songs. It's just like, wow.
Like,
So if you want to laugh today and be a little light, go over there and see his life through my Corona. So,
what is your favorite worship song?
oh,
It's
yeah, he just said, "What's your favorite worship song?"
Yeah,
That's Daniel that said that.
that is an amazing question.
Yeah, wow.
It depends on, it depends a lot on where we are. One of the things you had asked me when we met last week to kind of talk about this was just some songs that helped me get through things. So, way to go asking a really great question, because here's the deal.
Good job, man.
About every year or so, there's a song that just connects with me in a way that's really unique. So a couple of years ago, again, I'm going to say it's another Hillsong United song. There's a song called "So Will I," and it's a really beautiful song that's really just about, if creation was made to praise you, so will I. If you died, if you serve other people, if you died, if you love so much that you died for other people, then so will I. If it's basically saying, God, if you did all these things, I'm going to do the same thing. And it's way more poetic than anything I just tried to say just now. But there's a line in the bridge that really, I don't know, struck me really unique in a different way than I expected, I guess. And it's a line that says, if the wind goes where you send it, so will I. And I loved that line. And that was probably fall of 2017 when that came out, or at least when I heard it. And that line just stuck with me. And then when, a few months later, we kind of ended up, kind of facing this cancer journey, that was the thing that I immediately went back to. And I just thought, okay, God, if the wind goes where you send it, so will I. If this is the season, if this is the journey that you have for me right now, I'll go where you send me. So that there was a huge amount of sort of peace and power in that song for me. Another one, it's not really a worship song, but it was the video that you played at the top of this, was that whole Lauren Daigle album that I guess was out that year, or maybe late 2017, same time. I don't usually love the pop music stuff, but that album, man, it's just such a beautiful, beautiful record. So many songs on there. And one of them was Rescue. And it's, I would tell you the lyrics, but I don't think I could make it through it without breaking down. It's, it's God saying, I will send out an army and find you in the middle of darkness. And there's one line, it just says, I hear you whisper underneath your breath. Something like that. I hear you, or I hear you whisper, you have nothing left.
I hear you.
Yeah, he knows it. Yeah, it's when you're just at the end of it,
about the break.
I hear every bit of what you're saying. I hear every tiny whisper of your soul saying, I can't take it. And God's saying, I will send out an army to find you in that. And I will rescue you out of that. And oh my gosh, yeah, no, see?
I didn't mean to cover your head.
No, that's fine. And so that song to me was just huge. And then in January of 2019, I got to play that song with Crystal at a fundraiser for My Refuge House, which is an organization that rescues girls out of human trafficking. And we got to play that song as part of that event. And they didn't ask me anything about what song we were going to play. And Crystal told me, and I was just like, I'll do my best to get through it without breaking down. But, just an incredible song.
Wow.
And then there was, like thinking about songs that we sing from the platform. There's a song by Bethel, Raise a Hallelujah. I yell it as hard, as loud as I can, that I will raise a hallelujah.
Yeah.
In the middle of the mystery.
In the midst of my enemies.
Yes. I love it. And I can't not sing that at the top of my lungs.
I
And
love it.
I pity anybody standing near me because I'm sure it sounds horrible, but it's everything that I have to do that song justice, because there's so much power in what it's saying.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so, anyway, those are just 3 of them that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, being a worship guy, I'm sure you got a lot more there that you just hadn't remembered right now. But
Yeah.
Also on your Caring Bridge, there's some great verses your wife posted. There's even a blog post about that song specifically, you know. And one of the things, I know we're running over time, but there's one more thing I want to touch on. One of the chemo drugs you were taking, one of the paralysis could have been losing the feeling of your hands. And as a musician,
Yeah.
how was that, you know, when they told you that? I mean, how did you weigh that out?
I was very, that was one of the potential side effects, was the neuropathy, where you lose your feeling in your feet and your toes and then in your fingertips.
Right.
And I was really nervous about that. And I was pretty straight with my doctor, saying, tell me, how does that happen? Does it just one day you wake up and it's
Bam, it's gone.
happens, or is it over time, or is it, and then if it starts to happen, how do we,
Yeah.
And my oncologist and the nurse that I worked with were both really good about saying, if you start to feel something, let us know, and making sure that they were they said, that's a drug that if things are going well, if treatment, right, if your cancer is responding to the treatment, we can dial back the amount of certain drugs if we need to. I had another drug that caused some pretty bad lung complications that they just switched. And so, they said, if the treatment's working, we have flexibility to try different things.
Right.
So, it was really just picking up a guitar and making sure. And, the other thing is, they said, if you try to pick up a cup and you can't, it feels like you can't feel it. So fortunately, I never had anything in my hands. That was scary. That definitely was if this happens, what?
Yeah.
But again, I just kind of had to have, hope that it wouldn't happen. And I had a little bit of it in my feet, but right, even that was pretty minor. So, fortunately, I didn't have to face that too directly.
Yeah, that would have been a very difficult decision to make,
Yeah.
And so to make it. So, when we hear of people going through cancer, and I think this is, hearing your story is going to encourage people that we know how to pray for people as they're going through that. Before we end, can you give us some things that we need to be praying for people who have cancer? What should we pray for?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I just thank you so much for your viewers and your followers that I know were praying for me through all that. I haven't met most of you guys,
no,
but it means a lot. I mean, there was such an army of people praying, that people that we didn't know, and we were getting messages from people like that. I think just knowing that there was this huge, army of people praying for us,
so empowering. Yeah.
And so I think the specifics are really just that side effects are minimized, that there's, that treatments are effective, and that I think it's good to, like you were asking about earlier, pray for relationships through that,
right?
And pray that God speaks, clearly through the struggles, for to meet people where they are. I think, or to open people's hearts to what's going on. I mean, I think obviously we pray for healing, we pray for good outcomes, and we pray for minimal side effects. But I think it's important to pray for the relationships of the people that are dealing with it and the people around them. Like I said before, I had an incredible community around me that were willing to do anything that we needed at the drop of a hat. And so I think that's really important. I said over and over, I cannot imagine going through that without a community of people, or without, my wife at my side, or a really good team of physicians that I actually enjoyed going to see, because I enjoyed connecting with them as people. And I know there are a lot of people that don't have that. And so I think, I'm talking myself into saying that praying for community is the most important thing, and maybe not the most important, but hugely important. From my own experience, that was critical. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, well, Tyler, thank you so much, man, for doing this. And just one last question: you ever thought about writing this story in a book format, or has the Lord any heart or passion or wisdom in that area?
Yeah, there are definitely moments and seasons, particularly near the end there. I probably still have notes somewhere. I wrote 3 or 4 pages of notes that were like, I feel like I need to do something with this.
Yeah.
So maybe
Well,
I'll
I'd like
get back
to see
and look
that
at
happen. That would be great. I'd love to see something like that happen. So, because I was reading over your Karen Bridge and just was like, so encouraged yesterday, and
Man, that's awesome.
good stuff. So thanks for coming, man.
Thank you so much.
You and Rebecca, take care of yourselves. Don't be a stranger to the Mormon Motivation.
For sure.
We'd love to have you guys come back again. Love to even see your wife sometime. And so when COVID's gone, maybe we'll come see some IDC people. So
that'd be fantastic. We'd love to have it.